Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hal Marley. I'm a very grateful alcoholic from Washington, D.C. I use my full name because I do not practice personal anonymity within the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, but you can be sure I respect yours. Thank you for starting the meeting early tonight because I can see everybody. Last night, Earl said he was talking to a black audience. He couldn't see anybody out there. By the way, I had the privilege of introducing Earl at a meeting my home group puts on in Washington last year. And I described Earl as, after you hear Earl's talk, I think you'll agree, Earl has been there and done it. And he certainly has, a great talk. Anyway, I want to thank the committee, Clint, for inviting me back here. We were here, I think it's 5 years ago. And Mike came down to Phoenix and drove us up here. We got to the hotel, and John and Peggy took over, and they've been our constant companion, host and hostess, ever since we got here, and they've done an outstanding job. They took us down to Sedona. We spent 4 fantastic hours there. When we were here before, Marshall took us down, and we had 4 hours of awesome, really. It seems every time I go there, I get more awesome. It's an awesome place, and you're very privileged to have a national historic site just close to you. I'm sure if I come back here again, I'll go down and be awed again. So it is indeed a pleasure to be here, and thank the committee. My home group is the Yays and Nays. We meet in the Capitol of the United States Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock. The Capitol, in case you aren't acquainted with Washington, is that building with the big dome on top. And that's where we meet, at 8 o'clock on Tuesday morning. Due to a bombing in the Capitol about 20 years ago, they've closed the Capitol to the public until 9 o'clock. Nobody can get in, except AA members. If you go to the memorial entrance, that's the entrance to the bottom of the steps on the East Plaza. All the entrances are marked closed, closed, closed. Police all over the place, very tight security. And identify yourself as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. They take this closed sign down, throw out the red carpet, put you through security, and you go up to H310. That's the House Appropriations Committee meeting room, and we have our AA meeting there. We have a lot of visitors. You're all invited, not collectively, individually. We only have 50 seats, so individually you're invited there. We have a lot of visitors. We had one from the Midwest, somewhere in Denver, I think it was, a couple of years ago. He said, you know, out in the Midwest, we're very cynical about what goes on up here at the Capitol. It seems if the Democrats come in, they claim they're going to change everything. They don't change anything. Republicans come in, they're going to change everything. Nothing changes. And the reason is these are career politicians. They don't like changes. They like the perks and the things they get. The same thing for the GS-18s, the civil service. They got a lot of perks. They like things the way they are. So there's very little change. However, he said, I can testify to one change that I'm witness to. 40 years ago, I was a cop here on the Capitol Police Force. Our job was to keep drunks out of the Capitol. Now you've got to be a drunk to get in the Capitol. I don't know if we had any speakers from California out here recently. Anyway, my friend Sandy Beach just moved to Tampa. Many of you know Sandy. Sandy claims he doesn't have anything to do with this, but somewhere about 3 years ago, some very active, imaginative AAs around Orlando decided they'd have a new type of convention. They got bored with this the powwows and the roundups and the seminars and so forth. They were going to have a new one. They were going by the old schedule of meetings, dinner Friday night and the first meeting after dinner, meeting Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, closing meeting Sunday. That was the same, but it was going to be a different AA meeting, different weekend. This was going to be a nude AA weekend. They figured around, they finally got a venue down near Orlando to put up with 300 nude AA members. They sent out the flyers, got the flyers out, had the date picked, everything. And on the appointed Friday, 250 nude AA members showed up. They had a big dinner and a big meeting. Everything went great. Started off beautifully. Then had a meeting Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. Saturday afternoon, the committee had a private meeting, and they canceled the convention. The reason was everybody was comparing and nobody was identifying. As I said, it's nice to have a light here so I can see some people that I remember from the old days. I see my friend Les Eccles here from Phoenix, 42 years sobriety. Every time I come to Arizona, I see Les. God bless him. A lot of other people I here see remember from the old days. Let's go back to drinking. That's what this is all about. I had my first drink as a freshman at Columbia University in 1933. I was 18 years old, and for those of you who are slow in your mathematics or worried about my age, don't stop your adding and subtracting. I'll give you the answer. 86. I worked my way through college with a dance band. As you know, booze and the dance band business goes hand in hand. And I had my first drink as a freshman in 1933. But there was immediately a dichotomy in my life. My father had a drugstore in North Carolina, and when I became to high school age, he let me be a soda jerk after school hours. So I worked as a soda jerk after about the 8th or 9th, 10th grade. And you know, if you're a soda jerk, you have access to all the goodies behind the soda fountain. And I remember I'd worked for about 2 or 3 weeks, came home with a horrible stomach ache. And Mother said, "What did you have to drink or eat down the drugstore?" Well, I was working for my Boy Scout Eagle badge, and I couldn't tell a lie to tell the truth. I told her I had 6 Baby Ruths. I said, "Oh, my Lord, you've got to understand moderation. Too much of a good thing is bad for you. Too much of a good thing is bad for you." 3 weeks later, another stomach ache. What did you? Had 6 Coca-Cola. Moderation. Too much of a good thing is bad for you. 3 weeks later, Eskimo pies. They were just introduced to North Carolina. Same lecture. Moderation. Too much of a good thing is bad for you. And this was beat into my noggin down there in high school days. Here I was in New York City, had a taste of that liquor. And liquor was good. No question about it. And being in the dance business, we'd go to play for dances usually 9 to 1. And there was usually a kind person in the audience who'd buy the round of drinks for the band. And drinks for everybody. Well, I'd have one drink. That's all, because too much of a good thing is wonderful. The other guys in the band would have a drink apiece every 4 hours. And they seemed to get along and enjoy it, but no, moderation. Too much of a good thing is bad for you. And I stuck to one drink a night for about 6 or 8 months. Then I went to a movie, Radio City, my first time in Radio City. And a lady named Mae West. She was quite a stage star of screen in the 1930s. I used to tell my AA audience, many of you were too young to remember Mae West. Ask your mother and father, they'll tell you about him. I've got to update that. Most of you are too young to remember Mae West. Ask your grandmother and grandfather about it. Anyway, Mae West, I think W.C. Fields in the movie with her. She had a one-liner that came right here. Changed my life. Mae West said, "Too much of a good thing is wonderful. Too much of a good thing is wonderful." Well, you can imagine what I did. I threw my mother's moderation out the window and adopted Mae West's philosophy of life. Because it allowed me to drink as much as I wanted to, when I wanted to. So booze became a very good friend of mine. Booze never failed me. Booze made good things better and better things best. Booze was a basic ingredient in gracious living. I loved it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And this went on for many years. I was one of those lucky alcoholics that enjoyed booze and got by with it for many, many years. Unfortunately, I had a disease called alcoholism, and it is progressive. And my disease progressed. I won't go into details about my drunkalogue. I'm sure you all know how to get drunk as well or better than I do, so we'll skip over the drunkalogue. 1955, I was a career Air Force officer, command pilot. My assignment was the American Embassy in Warsaw, Poland, as the air attaché. This was the height of the Cold War. The years with Khrushchev and Gromyko were the Bulganin, running the Soviet Union. They'd come through Warsaw every 3 months to give the Polish communists a shot in the arm. 3 of the most interesting years of my life, actually. Anyway, this is where, as I look back on it, after drinking too much, too long, I became dependent upon alcohol, became addicted to alcohol, and I became an alcoholic. I say I became an alcoholic because that's where I lost my choice. If alcoholism is progressive, and there's much evidence that it is, then I was born an alcoholic because my father died in 1935 of acute alcoholism, 4 months after Bill and Dr. Bob got together in Akron. So maybe I'm hereditary alcoholic. Anyway, I say I'm an alcoholic on Warsaw because this is where I lost my choice. Up until then, I drank because I wanted to drink, with nice people, nice places, that basis of gracious living. And suddenly, I didn't drink because I wanted to. I drank because I had to drink. I had to drink to live. I had to drink to function. I had to drink to fly airplanes every 3 months. I didn't have an airplane in Warsaw. I had to go to Wiesbaden, Frankfurt to fly airplanes to get my flying time in. I had to fly to drink. I had to fly. I had to drink to go to the office. We had I'm not those who are drinking a lot at night and get up in the morning and face breakfast. I couldn't face it. My wife was having breakfast in bed by the butler, and I would sneak into the pantry, and in a 16-ounce glass, I would pour a concoction of one-third orange juice, one-third vodka, 150 proof Polish vodka, and one-third champagne. Now, the doctors tell us breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Well, I don't know about you, but after a hard night of drinking, facing those sunny side up eggs, I couldn't face them, much less eat them. So that orange juice, all those vitamin C's, that was fill the requirement for breakfast. Now, most of you need a hair of the dog that bit you. And that 150 proof Polish vodka served that requirement. It killed those butterflies, pulled in those nerve endings so I could sign my name when I got to the office. And that champagne filled the snob requirements that most alcoholics, especially this one. Warsaw was a hardship post. Supposed to be 2 years. We stayed 3 years because we never had it so good in terms of material things. We had a 16-room villa with 4 live-in servants. It was a great life, a wonderful life. And I came back to the States in 1958. My next assignment was Hamilton Air Force Base, San Francisco, one of the top spots for an Air Force officer in the United States Air Force. And here I used to say from the ridiculous to the sublime, from Warsaw to San Francisco. And it was great. But on my way there, from Warsaw, before I went to San Francisco, I had to go to a 3-week debriefing. I was supposed to be the expert on the Soviet Air Force. They had 10 Soviet Air Force bases in Poland and the Polish Air Force. And I was being questioned by all these hot rock civilian intelligence analysts, and I was supposed to be the expert. Usually 2 briefings in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. The CIA, the NSA, Army Map Service, and Army Navy Air Intelligence. All people that knew what they were talking about, and they asked a lot of questions. Well, for this alcoholic to be at peak performance, I had to have some booze inside of me. So I had to have a drink of booze every hour, keep going. So I carried my booze around in an attaché case labeled top secret for obvious reasons. And you go to the first briefing, get through, and excuse me, gentlemen, I've got to go to the men's room. My attaché case has top secret material, must take it with me. Into the John, glurp, glurp, back to the next briefing, so forth. get back to the BOQ or wherever we were staying that night and realized I'd consumed one bottle of booze out of that attaché case plus the normal social cocktails at lunch and dinner. And in a moment of lucidity, this little computer we have between our ears went back 17 years, 1941. I was a second lieutenant in the Horse Cavalry in New York City, National Guard. We were inducted by President Roosevelt for 1 year of active duty, all Guard units throughout the states. And the 101st Cavalry New York National Guard was inducted to duty and sent to Fort Devens, Massachusetts. We're a bunch of real New York snobs. We built our own officers club down the new end of Fort Devens. We didn't go to the regular big red brick building down in the middle of the reservation where the regular army stood out. Built our own army, our own officers club. We'd meet every afternoon at 5 o'clock. Sam Brown belt, boots and breeches for happy hour. And on March 1st, 1941, one of my peers brought in that Jack Alexander article on AA and alcoholism, read portions of it to us over the bar. Well, our reaction was sort of mixed. We're glad those alcoholics found us an answer and didn't die, but they couldn't have a drink the rest of their lives. My God. A life worse than death. A fate worse than death, excuse me. But that was a reaction. What a sorry. Anyway, this is 17 years later, and that article came back to my mind. Is that what I am, an alcoholic? Am I going to have to join AA if I want to live and never drink again as long as I live? And I thought about it. I remember that article said every one of those alcoholics who had recovered had tried every possible way there was to stop drinking, and they couldn't. They had to join AA. Well, my little cynical mind says, if I can stop drinking on my own, then I won't have to go to the meetings, and I'll be able eventually to drink again, because I will have solved the problem on my own. So I decided to stop drinking. May 1st, San Francisco, 1958, I stopped drinking. Went back to the gymnasium, lost 20 pounds of fat I'd picked up chasing the cross ball around. Felt better physically, never felt better physically in my life. Went back to church. There'd been no open churches in Warsaw. Hadn't been to church in 3 years. Back to church, mouthing the hymns, singing the prayers. Doing a good job at the office, occasional pat on the back. This is the Western Air Defensive Force, WADAF. We were responsible for the area protection of the West Coast. And I was director of training. So I got a pat on the back for a good job I was doing. But outside it looked great, but inside I was the most unhappy, bored, sober person in the state of California. Visitors would come through, diplomats that we'd been to in Warsaw and never been to California, San Francisco. We'd take them on the grand tour, end up at the top of the mark, raising a happy glass. They were drinking their champagne and martinis, what have you. That's beautiful San Francisco Bay Vista. And there I was stuck with a Coca-Cola or a ginger ale trying to be charming. And I hated those people. Saturday night, the big dance at the officers club, everybody having fun, enjoying life, and I was on the wagon. And I didn't know what to do about it. I couldn't figure this thing out. If booze had been my problem and I'd stopped drinking, then why wasn't I happy again? What's the trouble? What was the trouble? Booze was not my problem, obviously, because I had stopped drinking. What was my problem? Sobriety, ladies and gentlemen. Sobriety was my problem. I didn't have any tools to face the reality of sober living. No tools, just me, myself, and I. And that wasn't the answer. I didn't realize that I had a threefold disease, mental, physical, and spiritual, and on my own, still in the driver's seat, I was able to cope with the physical aspects of our disease. I'd stopped drinking. But on my own, still in the driver's seat, still running the show, I had not been able to cope with the mental and spiritual aspects of our disease. Just me, myself, and I were the only tools I had, and that didn't do it. What I had was not a sober life, a dry life without meaning, without purpose, without direction. Sobriety without AA. And I couldn't stand it. Those of you who are interested in dates, I'm sure you're all acquainted with a gentleman named Clancy Emerson. Clancy was in his last throes of active alcoholism. Clancy stopped drinking in October 31st, 1958. I had stopped drinking May 1st, 1958. At that point in time, I was 6 months senior to Clancy. That's as close as I ever came to AA fame. I was that close. And then I blew it. I stayed sober 8 months, but I just couldn't figure it. The only thing I could do to accept reality was to pour some booze on it. Because for 32 years, I'd pour booze on that reality, and it had worked. Booze had made reality acceptable. Booze had lessened the pain of reality. And maybe it'll work again. I went back to drinking, and here's a way I used to spend. I had a wonderful way to spend Sunday morning those days. I would send my wife and daughter off to church. Our boss, Major General Steve, was a very good church member. And the Marleys always went to church. Set up he and his wife sat here on the right side. We sat up on the left side, few pews up to the left, so make sure he'd see me there at church. Because I knew who made out my efficiency report. At any rate, occasionally I had to fly on Sunday, get flying time in. I'd send my wife and daughter off to church, and I'd call operations and get a T-33, a single-engine jet trainer, for local flying, 1 hour local flying. Get up 35,000 feet over San Francisco, pull back the oxygen mask, pull out that, turn on KABL, the San Francisco Good Music Station, pull out that flask of Jack Daniels Black Label whiskey and sip that whiskey and listen to that cable and do lazy eights over San Francisco Bay. What a beautiful way to spend Sunday morning. I wish I could do it tomorrow, except I can't drink safely. Anyway, after about 45 minutes, the booze run out, the jet fuel run out, go back to reality, back in the landings of reality. My next assignment was the best assignment there was in the Air Force for someone with my background. I was on the faculty of the National War College, the highest educational institution in the federal government. It composed of Army, Navy, and Air Force students, 2/3 of the student body. 1/3 was selected individuals from the State Department, CIA, Labor, Justice, all the various departments in the federal government. A select bunch of people. And again, 3 of the most interesting years I had in spite of my drinking. But they warned me. Every day at noon, we'd all go up, the students and the faculty, to the Fort McNair Officers Club. And they'd have sit down and have their lunch and so forth, and an occasional drink. I and another lush from the College of the Armed Forces go to the bar and drink our lunch. Now, again, the way an alcoholic thinker doesn't think. Didn't I think that all this here is the faculty and the students would notice me up there drinking my lunch every day? No, it didn't bother me. I didn't think about that at all. The boss called me in, 3-star general, Major General Butch Griswold, and said, "You know, Hal, you're doing a good job as a faculty member, but you're setting a bad example for the students. You drink your lunch every day. That's not good. So cut it out." I cut it out for about 4 or 5 months, but pretty soon, back in that thing, "Oh, they won't notice, they won't notice." Well, they did notice. And General Butch called me in and gave me a choice. You can sign voluntary retirement papers, or we will court-martial you for drunk on duty and take away your pension. Well, it didn't take me very long to make my decision real fast. So I signed, according to the records, I signed personal retirement, voluntary retirement papers to get out of the Air Force. So here I was, kicked out of the Air Force, 1964, and I couldn't figure out what had happened. I knew booze had a little bit to do with it, but I knew officers there at the college. They were drinking as much as I was, not publicly, but they were drinking. What happened to them? And I said, well, I don't know. No sane man could drink away the opportunities the Air Force has given me. Drink away a beautiful career. Been flying those airplanes around for 25 years. Wonderful life. Diplomatic status. Terrific assignments. No sane man would drink away the opportunity of that. And a wonderful wife. Something's wrong with the thinking mechanism. That's what the problem is, the thinking mechanism. It's either come unwound or off the track or something. What I need is a good psychiatrist. Get this thing wound up or straightened out so I can think straight again and solve this drinking problem and go back to social drinking. Well, again, by the grace of God, and only by the grace of God, there are a list of 20 psychiatrists I could select from in the hospital where I was. And I selected one because he had New York by his name. It turns out that he was a student of Columbia PNS, the first medical college, or one of the first in the United States, who had a course on alcoholism and required their interns to go to a minimum of 10 AA meetings. And that's the psychiatrist I randomly selected to go to. I said, Doc, I'm going to tell you the truth, tell you how much I drink and why I drink, and save you a lot of couch time. I said, I drink because my wife doesn't understand me, the Air Force doesn't understand me, blah, 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 blah. He was a very patient psychiatrist. He listened to this jazz for a month. Finally said, Hal, you're not psychotic, nothing wrong with your brain. You are an alcoholic. And I, as a psychiatrist, cannot help you with your booze problem, but there is an organization called Alcoholics Anonymous. I guess you go see them. So I came into AA November 17th, 1964, Lenox Hill Group, New York City, 2 East 90th Street. My first meeting, I drove in, I took a Fifth Avenue bus up, and there on 92nd Street was 2 limousines with a chauffeur, with a cab and so forth. Obviously, their master or mistress was attending the AA meetings. I thought, this is not going to be too shabby. So I went in, they had 5 in those days, 5 charming young ladies, members of AA, on the hospitality committee. And they introduced me around to everyone, and I realized I was a bunch of East Side New York snobs, and I identified immediately. So I jumped into this thing with both feet. In those days, three meetings a day was SOP. No big deal because every major group had a 7:30 beginners meeting, 7:30 till 8:20. Then you had 10 minutes to get upstairs to the speaker meeting. So 2 meetings every night and a noonday meeting at St. Mark's. So 3 meetings a day was no big deal. But I was still all confused. And I'd go to the beginners meeting every night. And my sponsor said, Hal, all you do is they get around to you and say, my name is Hal Marion Pass. You got to say something. This is a program of sharing and caring. Sharing and caring. Say something. I said, I don't have anything to say. He said, well, say it's a good day. It's a bad day. You're feeling good or better or something happened. Say something. Program of caring and sharing. So I tried to start sharing. When I shared that I was just another ordinary garden variety drunk. But I was not a refugee from the Bowery or St. Elizabeth's psych ward, because a lot of our alcoholics came from the Bowery and the psych ward. No, I'm not from the Bowery or the St. Bellevue psych ward. I'm an uptown drunk. And I wasn't bragging, I was just sharing, you understand this. But I gradually let this information slip out, discreetly, I thought. And remember, I wasn't bragging, I was sharing. I let them realize that I'd spent 9 years of my life at Columbia University, that college on Broadway, 116th Street and Broadway, New York City. And in payment for those 9 years, Columbia had given me 4 degrees, a bachelor's, 2 masters, and a doctorate. Just sharing, wasn't bragging, you understand this, just sharing. Just wanted to let them know they're getting a little class in their operation. One of the old-timers took me aside after the meeting and said, Hal, you know, here in New York City, we see a lot of smart alecks. Actually, he used a different word. Like you coming in this program, said, we look upon you as one of 2 things. You're either an overeducated drunk or an intellectual idiot. Said, you can have your choice. Either definition applies. So A took care of my academic background early in the game. So I had trouble with the steps, as most people do. And the 3rd step came up. Well, I was trying everything. I was reading the 12 and 12 and all that. And the subject of the meeting was the 3rd step. And I said, Hal Marlin, recovered alcoholic, and I've been following directions. I've been doing what you said. As far as the 3rd step is concerned, I've turned my will and life over to the care of God. God, you take it. I'm all through with it. And it's all yours. My will and life is yours. And all I do is don't drink and go to meetings, and it's everything belongs to you, and you're responsible. Well, one of the old-timers called me aside at the back after the meeting. He said, Hal, you either misread or misunderstand the 3rd step. It doesn't say turn your will and your life over to God. It It says, turn your will and your life over to the care of God. So you seem to think that all you have to do is stop drinking and go to meetings, and God will take care of everything. I said, no way, Buster. He says, God does the impossible. You have to do the possible. God will do nothing for you you can do for yourself. That took a different slant on this thing. So I've changed my idea of the third step. What I did was form a partnership with God. God's the senior partner. I'm the junior partner. Very close partnership. I'm aware of these long-range plans. I know there are deadlines next week, next month, next year. But my responsibility for implementing these long-range plans is one day at a time. Or sometimes that's too much. An hour at a time. 5 minutes at a time. Little hunks I can manage. It is a very close partnership. I don't have to go through any telephone, secretary appointments, just what have you, to see my senior partner. God's available at all times, in all places, as Earl pointed out last night, for whatever help, guidance, support that I need. And my friend Al Graw, God bless his soul, Al was a Jesuit priest, member of AA, 26 years, sobriety when he died of cancer. Al summed this partnership with God up in 8 words. Without God, I can't. Without me, He won't. Without God, I can't. Without me, He won't. And he told me, my sponsor told me, you know, Hal, no matter how hard you try to live by these spiritual principles and live the AA program and help others, there will be days where things don't go your way. Days where Murphy's Law is operating on all 12 cylinders. Everything goes just the opposite of the way you want it to. On these seemingly bad days, and usually they work out to be seemingly bad days, all you do is stop whatever you're doing and repeat this little psalm. 46th Psalm and 10th verse as well. Repeat it 10 seconds, 30 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever you. The psalm, as many of you know, is, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. I can only speak for myself. Over the years, there have been many times where things didn't go my way. Things went just the opposite. And I stopped whatever I'm doing, everything, and repeat that little psalm. 10 seconds, half a marathon. And somehow for me, it gives me the strength to go back into reality and face that real world, knowing that God's in His place and God is with me wherever I am, whatever I'm doing. What time is it? I would like to talk about my favorite subject, gratitude. When I came in the program, they told me I should be a grateful alcoholic. They said, you see a grateful alcoholic, you'll see a sober alcoholic. The guy at the podium was saying, I'm a grateful alcoholic. And I turned to my sponsor and said, what do you mean he's grateful? He's grateful he can't drink and have fun anymore? And my sponsor said, well, nah. He's grateful he's sober. He's sober. He says, you don't have to be grateful. You can be ungrateful if you want to. But most of the people you've associated here in Washington and New York in the last 3 or 4 months are all grateful alcoholics. And you can see them. You can notice they all have a smile on their face. They're enjoying life, a lot of friends. And they're grateful alcoholics. And he said, I hope you will learn from here that gratitude is the basic ingredient in humility. And humility is the basic ingredient in anonymity. And anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. And he told me that there was no law of physics, that 2 things cannot occupy the same place at the same time. Therefore, if I had a heart full of gratitude, there'd be no room in my heart or my life for anger, fear, guilt, remorse, self-pity, resentments, all those things that drive an alcoholic back into the bottle. So no matter how bad it got, no matter what he or she did to me, if I use the tools you've given me, the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, the virtues that come from an attitude of gratitude. If I use these tools you can give me, I can happily accept any situation or any individual that comes down the pike. In other words, if I face that individual or that situation with patience and tolerance and kindness and generosity and understanding and compassion and love, I can happily accept any situation or any individual that comes down the pike. I know there are these big book aficionados, gurus, and throughout one in every group, quote the big book by page number, paragraph number. There's usually one in every group. However, on page 133, it says, God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. That's what this thing is all about. Happy, joyous, and free. And if you have any pigeons that are worrying about, as I did, what is God's will for me? What's God's will for me? It's right there in the book, page 133. God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. And I love to quote Paul Oliger, God bless his soul. Paul always talked about the key sentence, the signal sentence on page 132. As Paul described it, it's in the middle of the page. And he says, when I mean middle, I mean middle. There's 16 lines above it. There's 16 lines below it. There are 2 extraneous words to the right of it, 2 extraneous words to the left of it, and that's the middle of the page. And of course the sentence is, we absolutely insist on enjoying life. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. And that's the A that I love and try to practice. So I'd been sober, 4 or 5 months. My sponsor said, where's your gratitude list? I said, my what? He said, your gratitude list. I don't know what you're talking about. He said, every alcoholic has a gratitude list, things he's grateful for. I said, look, boss, you forgot from whence I came. I just got kicked out of the Air Force. My life is over. 25 years of flying airplanes, diplomatic status, all those one things, gone. My life is chaos, total disaster. I have nothing to be grateful for. He said, I think you do. I said, I'll help you with your gratitude list. Get out a paper and pencil and write, Hal Marley gratitude list. Number 1, you're grateful you're alive. 2, you're grateful you're sober. 3, you're grateful you're a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. 4, you're grateful you got a place to sleep tonight. 5, you're grateful you got some food on the table. 6, you're grateful you got over 400 brand new friends you didn't know 4 months ago. 400 brand new friends right here in the immediate New York area. And 8 friends. 400 brand new friends who love you, who understand you, and who'll do anything they can in the world to help you stay sober one day at a time. 7, grateful you got a job. Well, don't have a job, got kicked out of the Air Force. Grateful you don't have a job, gives you more time to go to AA meetings. And I'm a meeting man. Meetings, that's where it is. There's a famous bank robber who'd been robbed the bank for years and years and years. I can't think of his name now. Anyway, he'd been before this judge for 10, 20 times. The judge said, why is it you rob banks all the time? He said, that's where the money is. At any rate, people ask me with 36 years sobriety, why do I go to 2 and 3 A meetings a day? Because that's where the sobriety is. And that's what I'm after, sobriety. Been sober a few more months, and my sponsor says, it's no big deal sitting around these A meetings and say, my name is so-and-so and I'm a grateful alcoholic. He said, words are cheap. Words are cheap. You have to live an attitude of gratitude. How do you live an attitude of gratitude? I wouldn't surmise to tell you how to live an attitude of gratitude. In the Word, I'll tell you how to work the steps. It's an individual program. Easy does it, but do it. I will try to share with you how I try one day at a time to live an attitude of gratitude. Number 1, I wake up in the morning and get on my knees, and I thank God for those 3 things. Thank God I'm alive. Thank God I'm sober. Thank God I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And again, at night, I get on my knees and thank God again for a beautiful day of sobriety and the wonderful people I've met and know and love. What about 9 to 5 out in the real world? After 32 years, I had to pour booze on it to make that reality acceptable. What do I do now? I can't pour booze on that reality anymore. Prayer, ladies and gentlemen. Prayer has become increasingly important in my life. One of my sponsors was a Methodist minister, Tom Lovren Jr., God bless his soul. Tom started Blackstone in 1956, one of the oldest A retreats on the East Coast. And Tom told me about prayer. He referred me to Norman Vincent Peale's little tome on action prayers, thinking prayers, shooting prayers. There again, Norman Vincent Peale, one of my idols. I used to get out of New York, go down to the Collegiate Methodist Church on the Collegiate Marble Church, 29th Street and 5th Avenue. And if you wanted to get into the auditorium where you could see Norman Vincent right there, and you had to be there at 10 o'clock for the 11 o'clock meeting. Otherwise, you end up in one of the anterooms with television bringing them in. And we used to go there at 9:30 to make sure we make it. To be in the auditorium and just see him right there in front of us.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
And he printed, he got on the list, all his sermons and all his speeches here and there, little 3x5 pamphlets, and they got on the list. And they were all inspirational. He had one, "What's Your Problem?" was the title on the cover. He looked inside, and here's a list of normal problems that people have, everything. Lost a job, sickness in the family, death in the family. And I used to quote this. This is from New York. Moved to the West Coast. I was speaking in Palm Springs last year, and I made that remark. You got a lot of booze. So let me remind you people that speak outside your area, before you start being a smart ass, look at where you're talking from, but not talking at. At any rate, all these lists of various problems you have. And after each problem, say, see page 32 or page 44. So you turn to that page, and here was a biblical quotation that answered that problem, whatever the problem was that you were looking up. Page 27 said, 27 problem was alcoholism. See page 27. Turn to page 27. Go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I kept that pamphlet for a long while. And recently, someone asked me, said, that pamphlet you're talking about? I said, let me have it. I want to Xerox it. So I went to look for it, and I couldn't find it. I remember a couple of years ago, I loaned it to a friend, an AA friend. For any newcomers, let me give you a word of warning. If you have something you want to get rid of, something you don't care if you ever see again, loan it to an AA friend. There are exceptions, but be careful. I don't know when it was, 10th or 12th year sobriety. A friend of mine came in the office. I was at the State Department at the time. Said, how's a book I got a hold of recently? I think you'd enjoy it. It's a very spiritual book. Said, something new that Hazelden put out? He said, no. This was written in 1666. Well, my cynical mind says 1666. I'm sure the language is archaic, and the problems and concepts of 1666 certainly don't apply in this modern world we live in. But I remember another definition of humility. My sponsor gave me, said, humility is remaining teachable. Remaining teachable. So I went to the bookstore, religious bookstore, and a little loose leaf pamphlet, not a pamphlet, paperback for $2.75 or something. Here is the book. I'm sure many of you know what I'm talking about. Brother Lawrence, The Practice of the Presence of God. And I read it, and I was amazed. The first is a series of letters and talks he had with various peers. And the first one dated August 3rd, 1666. His peer was saying, Brother Lawrence, I've observed you now for 6 months. The twinkle in your eye, everything you do, your smile, the way you enjoy your work, the way you walk, the way you talk, everything about you exudes peace of mind, peace with God, and peace with your fellow man. How in the world do you do it? And Brother Lawrence said, if you want peace of mind, peace with fellow man, peace with God, you turn over with complete abandon your spiritual and material life to the care of God. He goes on and explains for the next 3 paragraphs what we call the 3rd step of Alcoholics Anonymous. Nothing new in AA, ladies and gentlemen. It's been around a long time. And back to the prayers that I use throughout the day. First of all, the practice of the presence of God. And second, prayers throughout the day. And one I use an awful lot is January 12th. I pray that I may be grateful for the things I have received and do not deserve. I pray that this gratitude will make me truly humble. It reminds me from whence I came. It reminds me that my sobriety is a gift from God, undeserved gift from God. And the part about humility reminds me of a definition my sponsor gave me years ago. Humility is a recognition of the allness of God and the nothingness of self. Of myself, I am nothing. I was leading a meeting in Alexandria a few years ago, closed meeting on the 3rd step, and I quoted that, relieve me of the bondage of self, so that I may better do thy will. And I was talking about, I have to get rid of self. Bill talks about self-centered fears. Self will run riot, all because of self. And I quoted one of my morning readings called God Calling. I don't know whether that book is still in print out here or not. We still use it. East Coast. God Calling on May 3rd. The title is Kill Self Now. And I was using that in my own remark. Got to kill self now. And one of my well-meaning friends said, Hal, you can have yourself. Yourself deserves a little credit. You got a few years. You go to a lot of meetings. You try to help people. Self deserves a little credit. I said, no. Look at the record. Look at the record. For 49 years, me, myself, and I ran the show. And there were some good years. The first 49, there were some excellent, outstanding years. But we pay off on end results. And I told you the end result, 49 years old, kicked out of the Air Force, my life, the whole thing was ruined. The result was when me, myself, and I ran the show. So I go back. I got to kill self and keep self killed. I'd repeat the statement, kill self, kill self, kill. That's the answer. Some young lady came in the meeting late. She asked her seatmate, said, what's the subject? Her seatmate said, suicide. But that's what I have to do, ladies and gentlemen. I have to commit suicide a day at a time for the rest of my life. Keep that self killed. Because I've seen, and you've seen it, people come in, you hear about 10, 12, 14 years sobriety. They've left self, get back in the picture, and when self gets in the picture, our sobriety goes whoosh. So how do I live an attitude of gratitude, practice the presence of God, prayer throughout the day, many of the prayers. Actually, it's usually the 11th step. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God every day. And trying to live by these spiritual principles, enunciating the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I can't sum them up any better than Bill Wilson sums them up in the 12 and 12, the preface, where Bill says the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which, if practiced as a way of life, can expel the obsession to drink and enable the sufferer to become happily and usefully whole. And that's what you wonderful people in this fantastic program have given me. A happy, useful, whole life. Restored to the human race back in the mainstream, living, loving, and thoroughly enjoying the AA way of life. Thank you all for listening, and God bless.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. to install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.